Isaka boys return. The ISSAKABA boys, also known as the Backers boys, were feared throughout East Side. They were a group of vigilantes known for their swift and brutal justice against criminals. Tonight, they were on the hunt, pursuing a gang of thieves who had terrorized the market earlier that day. Chike, the leader of the ISSAKABA boys, stood at the head of the group, his eyes scanning the dark streets. "We can't let them get away," he said, his voice firm. "Those thieves have caused enough trouble." The other members nodded, gripping their weapons tightly. They moved through the streets with purpose, their footsteps echoing in the night. Earlier in the day, in one of the houses in the community, Adobe looked up from the pot of soup she was stirring. "Obinna, do you remember our first walk by the river?" Obinna, sitting at the small wooden table, laughed softly. "How could I forget? You were so scared of sleeping on the rocks." She smiled, her eyes twinkling. "And you held my hand the whole time. You say you would never let me fall." "And I meant it," Obinna said, reaching out to gently squeeze her hand. "I will always be here to hold your hand, Ada." They sat together, planning their future and talking about their dreams. The love between them was evident in every glance and touch. "I can't wait for our wedding day," Adobe said, her voice full of excitement. "I want everything to be perfect." "It will be, my love," Obinna replied. "We will have a beautiful ceremony, and everyone will be there to celebrate with us." "Promise me you will always be here, Obinna," Adobe said softly. "I can't imagine my life without you." "I promise, Adobe," he said, pulling her close and kissing her forehead. "I will always be by your side." As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow in their home, Adobe and Obinna shared a simple dinner, laughing and enjoying each other's company. "This soup is delicious," Obinna said. "You always know how to make the perfect meal." "Thank you, my love," she replied. "I love cooking for you." "I love everything you do," he said, smiling warmly at her. "You are amazing." After dinner, they sat outside watching the stars. Obinna wrapped his arm around Adobe, and she rested her head on his shoulder. "The stars are so beautiful tonight," Adobe whispered, "just like our future together." "Yes, they are," Obinna agreed, "and our future will be even brighter." "I feel so safe with you, Obi," Adobe said softly, "like nothing can ever go wrong." "As long as we're together, Ada," Obinna said, "nothing can." They sat in comfortable silence, simply enjoying the peace and the presence of each other. The bond between them was unbreakable, and their love was pure and deep. Later that evening, inside their cozy home, Obinna stood up and stretched. "I think I'll go out and buy some provisions for tomorrow," he said. "We need a few things for the market." Adobe looked up, concern in her eyes. "Do you have to go now? It's getting late, and the streets can be dangerous at night." "I'll be quick, Ada," Obinna reassured her. "Don't worry, I'll be back before you know it." He kissed her cheek and smiled. "Please be careful, Obinna," Adobe said, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't want anything to happen to you." "I will, my love," Obinna promised, hugging her tightly before leaving. "I promise." As Obinna stepped out into the night, Adobe watched him go with a mix of love and concern. She believed in his promise and waited for his return. Inside the house, Adobe busied herself with small tasks, trying to distract her mind. She cleaned the kitchen, tidied up the living room, and then sat down with a book. But her thoughts kept drifting back to Obinna. Adobe muttered to herself, "He should be back by now." She glanced at the clock, worried gnawing at her. "Maybe I'm just overthinking." She stood up and walked to the window, peering out into the darkness. The street was empty, and there was no sign of Obinna. She felt a chill run down her spine. Minutes turned into an hour, and Adobe's anxiety grew. She decided she couldn't wait any longer. Grabbing a shawl, she headed out into the night to look for Obinna. As she walked through the dimly lit streets, she called out his name. Obinna, Obinna, where are you? Her voice echoed in the silence, but there was no response. Her heart pounded with fear as she quickened her pace. Please be okay, Obinna, she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. Please be okay. The suspense built with each step she took, the night growing darker and more foreboding. The quiet streets offered no reply, her footsteps echoing in the stillness. Her heart pounded with each step, a sense of dread growing within her. Adobe wandered through the neighborhood, calling out Obinna's name. She stopped to ask her neighbor if they had seen him, but no one had. Her anxiety grew with every passing minute. Obinna, she called out again, her voice breaking. Where are you? Her search continued, but there was no trace of him. The sense of calm she had tried to maintain was slipping away, replaced by mounting fear and desperation. Adobe sank to her knees on the empty street, tears streaming down her face. Please, Obinna, she sobbed. Please come back to me. About 1 hour earlier, the ISSAKABA boys continued their hunt for criminals around the community street. Over there, one of the ISSAKABA boys shouted, pointing to a shadowy figure darting down a street. Chike raised his hand. After them. Don't let them escape. The chase was on. The thieves, realizing they were being pursued, scattered in different directions. The ISSAKABA boys split up, each taking a different route to corner the criminals. Meanwhile, in another part of the neighborhood, Obinna was making his way back home with the provision he had bought. He walked quickly, wanting to return to Adobe as soon as possible. Obinna turned the corner and found himself face to face with one of the fleeing thieves. The thief, panicked and desperate, collided with Obinna, knocking him to the ground. What the? Obinna started to say, but the thief was already scrambling to his feet and running away. Before Obinna could get up, the ISSAKABA boys arrived, surrounding him. Chike pointed his machete at Obinna. There he is, one of the thieves. Obinna raised his hands, confusion and fear in his eyes. Wait, I'm not a thief. I was just walking home. Chike's eyes narrowed. Likely story. We've had enough of your kind causing trouble in our city. One of the other members grabbed Obinna roughly. We caught you red-handed. Now you will pay. Obinna struggled, trying to explain. Please, you've got it wrong. I'm not one of them. But the ISSAKABA boys were not listening. They had seen too much crime and heard too many excuses. In their eyes, anyone caught in the wrong place at the wrong time was guilty. Chike gave a signal, and the group began to drag Obinna towards the market square where they had planned to execute the captured criminals. As they moved through the streets, Chike spoke to his men. We must show the people of East Side that crime will not be tolerated. These thieves will be made an example of. One of the younger members, Nnamdi, glanced at Obinna. But Chike, what if he's telling the truth? What if he's innocent? Chike's expression hardened. We can't take any chances. The safety of our city comes first. Obinna's heart pounded as they reached the market square. He saw the other captured thieves. Fear etched on their faces. He realized with growing dread that the ISSAKABA boys had no intention of listening to him. He tried one last time, his voice desperate. Please, I'm innocent. I have nothing to do with this. But his pleas fell on deaf ears. The ISSAKABA boys were already preparing for the execution, their minds set on delivering their brutal form of justice. As Obinna looked around, his thoughts turned to Adobe. Ada, he whispered, tears filling his eyes. I'm so sorry. The crowd, hungry for justice, gathered around, their faces lit by the flickering flames of torches. Chike stepped forward, raising his hand for silence. Tonight, we rid each side of these criminals, he announced, his voice ringing out over the square. Let this be a lesson to all who dare to bring harm to our city. The crowd cheered, but Obinna's voice broke through the noise. Please, listen to me. I'm not a thief. I'm innocent. Chike ignored him, turning to his men. Prepare them, he ordered. The ISSAKA boys began to light the fires around the tied-up prisoners. Obinna struggled against his bonds, desperation in his eyes. You have to believe me. I was just buying provision for my fiancée. Her name is Adobe. One of the ISSAKA boys named looked uneasy. Chike, are we sure about this? What if he's telling the truth? Chike's expression remained steely. We can't afford to take chances in the justice must be swift. Meanwhile, Adobe, still searching for Obinna, approached the market square. She saw the flickering lights and heard the shouts of the crowd. Her heart pounded with a mixture of hope and fear. As she grew closer, she recognized Obinna's voice. No, she whispered, her steps quickening. Please, no. Adobe pushed through the crowd, her eyes wide with terror. She saw Obinna tied up with the others, the flames dangerously close. Obinna, she screamed, running towards him. Stop! He's innocent. He's not a thief. The crowd turned to look at her, murmur spreading through the trunk. Chike raised his hand again, signaling his men to halt. He looked at Adobe, his eyes narrowing. Who are you? Adobe fell to her knees before Chike, tears streaming down her face. Please, sir, he's my fiancé. He's not a thief. He went to buy provision for us. You have to believe me. Chike studied her, his expression unreadable. How do we know you are telling the truth? He was found with the thieves. Adobe's voice trembled with emotion. I swear on my life, he's innocent. Please don't do this. Nnamdi stepped forward, his face conflicted. Chike, maybe we should listen to her. What if we're making a mistake? Chike hesitated, the weight of the decision heavy on his shoulders. He turned to Obinna. If you are truly innocent, how did you end up with the thieves? Obinna's voice was desperate but clear. I was walking home when one of them ran into me. I fell, and before I could get up, you were there. Chike looked at Adobe, then back at Obinna. The crowd watched in tense silence, the flames casting eerie shadows on their faces. Finally, Chike lowered his machete. Untie him. The ISSAKA boys moved to release Obinna, and Adobe rushed forward, throwing her arms around him. Thank you, she sobbed, clutching him tightly. Thank you for believing us. Chike raised his hand once more, addressing the crowd. Tonight, we almost made a terrible mistake. Let this be a lesson to us all to seek the truth and not rush to judgment. The crowd began to disperse, murmuring among themselves. Nnamdi looked at Obinna and Adobe with relief. I'm glad we listened. I'm sorry for what almost happened. Obinna nodded, still holding Adobe close. Thank you for giving us a chance. As the square emptied, Obinna and Adobe walked home, their hearts heavy but grateful for the narrow escape. The night had been a harsh reminder of how quickly things could go wrong, but their love had prevailed. Adobe looked up at Obinna, her eyes filled with tears. I was so scared I had lost you. Obinna kissed her forehead gently. We're together, Ada. That's all that matters. Adobe bolted from her nightmare, sweating, her heart pounding. Obinna woke up beside her and asked, What's the matter? Adobe shivered and stared at him. I had a terrible nightmare where you were almost killed by the dreaded ISSAKA boys. You have to be careful. Obinna stared at her and assured her that it was all a nightmare, not knowing that the story was just about to begin. Stay tuned. Please subscribe, like, and comment as we get ready for an interesting ride with the ISSAKA boys. This is a Neophonics Illumination tale.